You're watching Forsaken Joe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the story. Let's begin. I thought it was my laptop. Same silver case, same stupid sticker on the lid that Evelyn swore she was going to peel off but never did. I was just trying to check an email before my morning meeting, and I opened it without thinking. The screen lit up with her background photo, our dog Daisy, wearing a birthday hat, and I froze for a second. But then I saw the unread notification. Subject: Divorce strategy urgent from Denton Law. I clicked. I don't even know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct. Maybe I just knew, deep down, that something was off, and I needed the confirmation. The email was from some lawyer named Andrew Denton. The tone was professional, but the content was like getting sucker punched in the throat. Attached is the revised asset division strategy. Evelyn should continue recording Nathan during emotional conversations, especially when alcohol is involved, to support the mental instability claim. I kept reading. Regarding the business, since Nathan's name is on all assets, our best approach is to file after the Q2 earnings. The goal is to prove he used marital assets to fund personal ventures. The prenup has exploitable language we can challenge. And then, God help me, this line. Regarding Kyle, we advise all communication remain off written channels until the divorce is finalized. If necessary, Evelyn can deny the timeline of the relationship. Kyle. I knew that name, her co-worker, the one she laughed with over wine, the one she went on business retreats with. I remembered the text I saw months ago. Thanks again for last night. That she swore was about a work dinner. I had doubted myself, believed her. Like a goddamn idiot, I scrolled further. There were attachments, timelines, financial summaries, strategies to manipulate me into looking unstable, not just take the house or money, but to ruin me. My vision blurred, my stomach turned. I stumbled into the downstairs bathroom and threw up in the sink. I don't know how long I stood there, gripping the edges of the porcelain, like it was the only thing keeping me upright. And then something in me changed, something cold, something sharp. I walked back to the laptop, hit forward, and sent the whole thread to my attorney, Clay Richards. Then I shut the lid, took a deep breath, and wiped the sweat off my forehead. If she wanted a war, she'd get one. But not on her terms. No screaming, no theatrics. This would be quiet, strategic, methodical. And when it was over, Evelyn wouldn't just lose. She'd understand exactly what she threw away, and why she'd never get it back. Clay didn't say a word for the first 30 seconds after reading the forwarded email. He leaned back in his leather chair, temple twitching slightly, eyes scanning line by line, like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. When he finally looked at me, his voice was low and even. "You sure she doesn't know you saw this?" "She has no idea," I said. "She left the laptop on the kitchen island. I thought it was mine." Clay nodded slowly. "Then you just bought yourself a head start. We're not going to waste it." By noon, he had frozen every joint account with my name on it. We restructured the trust in my business, removed her as beneficiary from my retirement, and secured my real estate portfolio under a holding company. Every paper trail Evelyn might have thought she had access to was now hidden, redacted, or wrapped in legal thorns she'd never unravel in time. "From here on out, Nathan, you say nothing," Clay said, tapping a finger on the desk. "Let her think you're still in the dark. Don't engage. Don't confront her. Let her hang herself with her own plan." I just nodded. My throat felt raw. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something heavier, like grief soaked in acid. That night, I packed a duffel bag and drove 4 hours to the cabin. It was a rundown place out in the woods near Ashford Lake. I bought it back when I thought I wanted to fish on weekends and read books without phone service. Evelyn called it quaint the one time she visited, and never came back. Perfect. The air was sharp and piney. The porch creaked like it always did. I turned off my phone and dropped it in the drawer. Then I lit the fireplace and just sat there, watching the flames crawl over the wood. By morning, the text had started. "Evelyn, hey, where are you?" I woke up and you were gone. Evelyn, you didn't take your phone charger. Is everything okay? Evelyn, Nathan, you're scaring me. Please say something. She didn't know yet. She thought I was sulking. Maybe I had finally snapped under the weight of work. Maybe her plan was starting to work. I didn't respond. Clay texted once a day with updates. Bank transfer halted. Safe. Retirement revision complete. Her name's off everything now. The The waiting was the hardest part. Not because I wanted to yell or scream or throw her out of the house, but because every hour I stayed silent, I could feel the power shifting. The lies were hers now, but the strategy, that belonged to me. I found out about the cafe from a mutual friend of Evelyn's, a guy named Tom, who didn't realize he was giving me gold when he casually mentioned, "Evelyn's basically a regular at Juniper and Oak these days. Always there with that guy from her firm, Kyle. Something. Juniper and Oak. The one on Hanover Street. Big windows. Lots of natural light. A place people went to be seen." I showed up that Friday morning wearing an old flannel shirt, a baseball cap pulled low, and glasses I hadn't worn in years. I tucked into the back corner, ordered black coffee, and waited. They arrived at exactly 9:42 a.m. Evelyn wore the beige trench coat she always said made her feel executive. Kyle had on a charcoal suit, no tie, hand on her lower back like it belonged there. They walked in laughing, like they hadn't just spent the last month plotting how to rob me blind. I watched them take a table near the window, angled perfectly for anyone walking by to catch a glimpse. Evelyn leaned forward, rested her chin in her palm, and said something that made Kyle laugh so loud, heads turned. I turned on the voice recorder app in my pocket. "You don't think he suspects anything?" Kyle asked, stirring his drink. Evelyn shook her head. "Nathan? Please. He's practically a ghost lately, hiding out in that moldy cabin of his, probably crying into a campfire." Kyle chuckled. "You're evil." She smirked. "I'm strategic. There's a difference." Then her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "And once we're done, I'll have the house, the accounts, and a clean narrative. The poor wife abandoned by her paranoid husband." "Jesus," Kyle muttered. "You make it sound easy." "It is," she said, "especially with a prenup that soft. Denton says we just need to paint him as unstable. And believe me, the minute he raises his voice, I'll be ready." That was enough. I stood slowly, walked across the cafe, and stopped at their table. The moment Evelyn looked up and saw me, her face went pale. "Morning," I said casually. "Didn't mean to interrupt, just figured I'd say hello." Kyle blinked. Hi." Evelyn tried to smile, but it twitched at the corners. "Nathan, I didn't know you were back in town." "I just got in," I said. Then I turned to Kyle. "You're Kyle, right?" He gave a tight nod. "You still seeing your kids every other weekend? Or did your ex finally win full custody?" He blinked. "What?" "Hard to keep track," I said. "Last I heard, you were 6 months behind on alimony, that right?" Evelyn's eyes widened. "I don't know what you think," Kyle started, but I cut him off. "You're not very careful for a guy with that much at stake," I said. "Public place, hand-holding, the timing, it's not great optics. But I'm sure Denton Law has a plan for that too." I looked at Evelyn one last time. "Enjoy your coffee," I said. "It might be your last one on my dime." Then I turned and walked out without looking back. But I heard it. Evelyn's sharp breath, the low whisper of panic, the first crack in her perfect plan. It was subtle, but the war had officially begun. When I walked through the front door, the first thing I smelled was bacon, thick cut, peppered, just the way I liked it. The kitchen table was already set. Eggs, pancakes, orange juice. Evelyn stood at the stove in a soft robe, her hair pulled back in a loose bun, humming like it was any other Sunday morning. Like she hadn't just tried to gut me in secret. "Morning, stranger," she said, smiling over her shoulder. "I figured I'd surprise you. You've been gone for days." I didn't answer. I just pulled out a chair and sat, my eyes never leaving her. She plated the bacon and brought it over, then slid into the seat across from me. "I was worried. You didn't return any texts. You okay?" "You plan to destroy me," I said, my voice calm. "Financially, personally, legally. You even plan to lie about my mental state." Her smile faltered, just for a second. "What?" she said lightly, but her eyes darted. "What are you talking about?" I didn't flinch. "I saw the email, Evelyn, from Denton Law, the strategy memo, every word of it." She stared at me, mouth slightly open, like her brain was scrambling for a play and couldn't find one fast enough. "You went through my email? You left your laptop open. It wasn't intentional, but I read it. All of it." The silence was sharp. Then her expression cracked. "Nathan, it wasn't what it looked like, okay? That was just legal posturing. Denton sent that. I didn't even approve it. I was upset. I didn't mean it. I watched her. She wasn't crying. Not yet. She was waiting to see if denial would work. You also didn't mean to sleep with Kyle? I asked. She looked down at her hands. That's when the act shifted. I messed up, she said, voice trembling. I was lonely, and you were always working, and Kyle he paid attention. You were planning this long before Kyle, I said. You don't get to rewrite it now. She reached across the table, touching my hand gently. Nathan, I don't want a divorce. I don't want to lose you. I didn't pull away, but I didn't move either. You already lost me, I said quietly. You just didn't notice. Her eyes filled then, real tears, or at least, I think they were real. Evelyn was always good at knowing when to cry and when to hold back. You don't mean that, she whispered. I stared at her. I spent years thinking we had a life, that what we built mattered, but now I see it. You never loved me. You loved what I gave you, the security, the house, the image. You loved the idea of me. She wiped her cheek. I loved you, she said, like it was a fact. I still do. No, I said, standing slowly. You loved control, and you lost it the moment I walked out that door. She followed me as I stepped into the hallway. We can fix this. Just talk to me, please. I turned to face her. You tried to break a man who gave you everything. There's no fixing that. And then I walked upstairs, leaving her in the kitchen, standing barefoot on the tile, in the middle of a perfect breakfast for a marriage that no longer existed. I moved into the guest room that night. Didn't make a big show of it. Didn't slam doors or pack a suitcase dramatically. Just carried a pillow under my arm and walked down the hall, shutting the door behind me without a word. Evelyn knocked once, maybe 10 minutes later. Nathan? Her voice was soft. Can we talk? I didn't respond. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't angry, not the way I used to define anger. I was something else now. Tired, maybe. Cold. She knocked again, a little louder. Please. Still nothing. The next day the text started. Evelyn, I know I hurt you. I hate what I did. Can we just talk? Evelyn, I'm not the monster you think I am. I made a mistake. One mistake. Evelyn, you said we were a team, Nathan. Don't throw it all away. I said nothing. My lawyer, Clay, called 2 days later. His tone was clipped, matter of fact. She's moving forward, he said. Filed her preliminary petition this morning. I just nodded. Let her. You ready for the real part now? More than ready. I changed the locks that weekend, not just on the house, but on the gate to the property and the studio I used as my office. I installed a new alarm system with codes she didn't have. I called the bank and made sure her cards were off every business account. Evelyn noticed. She had to. She didn't say anything directly, but I started getting guilt trip messages from her sister, from one of her friends. Little things like, she's hurting too, you know, or nobody's perfect, Nathan. Perfect. That's the word Evelyn always chased. The perfect life. The perfect story. I was just the backdrop she built it on. She cried more openly now, mostly at night. I'd hear her through the wall, stifling it into a pillow. The first time, it nearly got to me. But then I remembered that email, the strategy, the coldness of it, and I stayed still. I stopped answering her calls altogether. Even when she stood outside the guest room door, begging through tears, I didn't open it. She said she felt like she was going crazy, that she couldn't sleep, that this wasn't how it was supposed to go. But I had already seen how she wanted it to go. She thought I'd unravel. She wanted me confused, frantic, desperate to fix things while she stripped me of everything behind the scenes. Instead, I was methodically cutting her out of every corner of my life. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a blueprint for war, and I was done pretending it was anything else. Evelyn sent the invite through email, as if we were scheduling lunch. Subject, talk, just us. Please. The body read, can we meet at the house Thursday 7 p.m.? I just want to talk, no games. Please. I showed up on time, wearing the same calm expression I'd worn in courtrooms. She was already in the living room, dressed sharp, like she was trying to present put together one last time. Thanks for coming, she said, standing awkwardly. Do you want something to drink? No, I said, taking a seat across from her. Let's just get to it. She sat down, smoothing her dress. I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that's happened. I didn't handle things well, and I admit that. But this doesn't have to get uglier. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't handle things well? Evelyn, you tried to frame me as unstable. You hired a lawyer to pick apart my assets like a buzzard, all while sneaking around with Kyle. Her jaw tensed. Kyle wasn't supposed to matter. I was just angry, Nathan. You were always gone, always focused on your company. I needed something. No, I said evenly. You needed leverage. You needed a win. And you thought I'd just roll over. She leaned forward, voice softening. I don't want a war. I just want what's fair. I leaned back and folded my hands. Then it's too bad you tried to cheat your way there. Because now, Evelyn, I've already made my move. The business is locked, the accounts are secured, the house is in a trust, and the prenup you signed 10 years ago, ironclad. Her face lost all pretense of control. You're bluffing? I smiled just enough to let her know I wasn't. Denton can double-check. He'll find the revisions, the filings, the sealed trust records. Every door you thought was open is shut. She stood abruptly, pacing now. This wasn't supposed to happen. You weren't supposed to outmaneuver me. You thought I'd panic, I said. That I'd beg. But while you were laughing at a cafe, I was prepping the ground you're now standing on. You think this makes you righteous? She snapped. You're acting like a vindictive child. No, I said calmly. I'm acting like a man who finally woke up. She stopped pacing, arms crossed tight. You think you've won? I stood and adjusted my watch. If you want to drag this into court, we will. But understand, I'm ready for scorched earth. I will subpoena every email, every receipt, every photo, and Kyle, he'll be sitting next to you in depositions, explaining his role in this little mess. She blinked, stunned. You wouldn't... I already have, I said, heading toward the door. And if you think I'm afraid of airing the truth, try me. She didn't follow me, didn't say another word. I left her there, alone, cornered, and finally realizing the truth. The game was never hers to win. It didn't take long to confirm it. A charge showed up on the joint credit card Evelyn forgot to stop using. Delmont Suites, downtown. 2 nights, room service, Saturday and Sunday. She'd told me she was attending a wellness retreat with her friend Denise. Denise posted an Instagram story from Sedona that same weekend. So I waited. I played it cool, went about my business, and when Saturday rolled around, I parked 2 blocks from the Delmont and sat in my truck with a thermos of coffee and my camera. It wasn't even a full hour before I saw them. Kyle pulled up in a black rental, stepped out like he owned the sidewalk, and Evelyn walked out the front door, smiling like it was a damn honeymoon. They kissed right there under the awning, long and slow, and walked inside, hand in hand. I got 6 clean shots. Later that evening, I followed them to a nearby Italian place where they took a corner booth and shared a bottle of red wine. Evelyn laughed, reached across the table to touch his face like she used to touch mine. Kyle leaned in close, whispering something in her ear that made her blush. Click, click, click. They were so comfortable, so careless. It was almost insulting, like they truly believed I was just out there somewhere licking my wounds while they played house in my city, on my dime. When they went back to the hotel, I didn't follow them up. I didn't need to. I already had everything. I emailed the full photo set to Clay the next morning, along with the time-stamped receipts, the room charges, and a list of calls Evelyn had made from our shared phone plan while she claimed she was working late. Clay called an hour later. Nathan, he said, this is gold. Not only will it eliminate any argument for spousal support, it directly violates the infidelity clause in the prenup. Make it count, I said. Oh, he chuckled. It already has. The next week, Evelyn walked into our mediation session expecting a negotiation. She brought her lawyer. She wore her confidence like armor. And then Clay pulled out the folder. He slid the photos across the table slowly, one by one. Evelyn's face turned sheet white. Her lawyer leaned over, flipped through them, and closed the folder with a long sigh. We weren't going to use this, Clay said. But since Evelyn's team insisted on full compensation and ownership claims, we thought a dose of reality was necessary. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. She just stared straight ahead, like someone had punched all the air out of her lungs. And for the first time since this whole thing began, she looked genuinely afraid. She knew. This wasn't just a loss anymore. It was a reckoning. I handed her the envelope myself. No door slamming, no dramatic scene. Just a quiet Tuesday morning, standing in the kitchen where we used to make pancakes on weekends. Evelyn was halfway through a mug of coffee when I slid the thick manila folder across the counter. She looked at it, then up at me. "What's this?" "Read it," I said. She opened it slowly, like maybe there was still time to stop it from being real. Her eyes scanned the top page, my full legal filing, the official divorce paperwork with every line of the prenup attached, every asset she was no longer entitled to, every detail laid out like a ledger of finality. Her lips parted, but no words came out at first. "You're really doing this," she whispered. "I already did it," I replied. She set the folder down, visibly shaking. "Nathan, wait, can we talk? You don't have to go this far." "You already went farther," I said. "You had a plan to ruin me. You called it strategy." "That was before," she said quickly. "Before all this. Things changed." "No," I said, voice steady. "You changed. Or maybe I just finally saw who you were." She stepped around the counter toward me. "You think I don't regret it? I made mistakes, yes, but you're punishing me like I meant to destroy you." "You did mean to destroy me," I said. "You just didn't think I'd beat you to the punch." She shook her head, tears forming now. "You're not being fair." "I'm being done," I said. "There's a difference." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Her touch didn't mean anything anymore. It was just a reflex, part of her control, part of her performance. "I don't want to fight," she said softly. "I just want peace." "Then sign the papers," I said. She looked down at the folder again, defeated. I turned and walked away, up the stairs, past the guest room, into the master closet where I grabbed the last of my clothes. I tossed them in a bag, zipped it shut, and took one final glance around the house. It felt quiet now, empty in a way that had nothing to do with furniture. Evelyn stayed in the kitchen, staring at the envelope like it was a loaded gun. I stepped out the front door, pulled it closed behind me, and didn't look back. She had lost the game, and I had finally won my freedom. The loft was small, quiet, and perfect. Exposed brick walls, a single window overlooking Main Street, no echoes of arguments, no scent of Evelyn's perfume on the couch cushions. Just me, my coffee maker, a beat-up leather armchair, and enough space to breathe. I signed the lease with one suitcase and a folded list in my back pocket, stuff I needed to rebuild my life. Not furniture, not decor. Just things like peace, trust in myself, and a reason to wake up that didn't revolve around surviving someone else's chaos. The first morning I woke up there, I sat by the window and watched people walk by, bundled in coats, sipping lattes, heading somewhere. I wasn't rushing for once. I wasn't tiptoeing through my own house, afraid to trigger another passive-aggressive sigh or cold silence from the other side of the bed. I was alone. And it didn't feel empty. It felt clean. Clay handled the rest of the legal wrap-up. I barely had to speak to Evelyn again. The court finalized everything just 2 weeks later. The prenup held. The infidelity clause crushed her demands. Kyle was named in the official filings, and his lawyer went quiet after that. Evelyn tried one last desperate Hail Mary with a character statement, but the judge saw through it in minutes. She walked away with nothing, not because I wanted revenge, but because she earned it. In the months that followed, my work took off. I found myself thinking clearer, moving quicker, making sharper decisions. I didn't realize how much she'd drained from me until she was no longer in the picture. My clients noticed too. Deals closed faster, partnerships stuck. I started taking walks in the evening. I read again. I remembered what silence sounded like when it wasn't laced with tension. Evelyn texted twice after the papers were final. Once to say she was sorry for how it ended. Once more to ask if I ever thought we could talk. Just as friends. I deleted both without reading past the first line. There was nothing left to salvage. And more importantly, nothing left I wanted. One night, maybe 5 months after the move, I stood at the window of the loft, looking down at the streetlights and headlights rolling past. I realized I felt whole, not ecstatic, not victorious, just solid, like someone who had been cracked wide open and put himself back together without borrowing any glue. I thought I'd feel bitter or empty or angry forever, but I didn't. I just felt free, and that was enough.